Breaking news overnight, shocking the world. Vladimir Putin says that Russia has developed a working COVID vaccine and that it has gotten regulatory approval from that country's health ministry. The alleged vaccine was developed by Moscow's Gamaleya Institute, and Vladimir Putin says his own daughter has received the vaccine, and he hopes that Russia will soon begin mass production. But Dr. Scott Gottlieb on earlier in the show offered this big word of caution.
Something that's only been tested in several hundred patients, that's effectively a phase 1 clinical trial, and so you wouldn't want to take that outside a clinical trial where you're being closely monitored.
Now you can see stock futures are up 255. They were up, by the way, already before the news, but they did take another leg higher, effectively adding about 100 points when the news broke right around 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. Again, a lot of questions. This is coming out of Russia. Scientists, I'm sure, around the world trying to get more information on the drug trials, on the vaccine itself, more news. But right now the markets did indeed react. You can see that tick up right around 3:30 or 4 a.m. Eastern time. All right, joining us now to discuss the news this morning and their efforts in the battle against COVID-19 is Chad Robbins. He is Adaptive Biotechnologies co-founder and CEO. The stock gaining about 25% so far this year, and Adaptive recently partnering with industry leaders, including Microsoft, to decode the immune response to the coronavirus. So working certainly on vaccine development and trials as well as drug trials. Chad, you're a perfect guest to have on this news day. What are your initial thoughts about this news from Russia?
Well, my initial thoughts on the news of Russia is that we got to be extremely wary, because in order to have an effective vaccine, you need to determine safety and you need to determine efficacy. So I'd really like to see what the data is to show both of those things. And one of the things that we're seeing in determining efficacy, and we'll talk about it more, but is that the antibody response is not enough. You also have to look at the T-cell response to the virus.
Yeah, and outside of this vaccine, which again has so many questions, I should call it the alleged vaccine as well, Chad, to your point, we talked to Scott Gottlieb about T-cell responses and this idea of herd immunity. So outside of a vaccine, with your trials that you're doing at Adaptive and your partnership with Microsoft, are you maybe confident that as a country, perhaps more people have been exposed than we think, either to this or prior coronaviruses, and maybe we are inching our way closer to natural immunity faster than we think?
I think that that's a possibility, but we're really going to need the proper tools to be able to measure that. And one of the things that we've done over the quarter is we've comprehensively mapped the T-cell response to SARS-CoV-2. So not only to the vaccine, the part of the virus called the spike protein that all the vaccine developers are targeted, but 11 other parts of the virus. And we've developed a new tool called immunoseq Tmap COVID is for vaccine developers to integrate into their trials to accurately and reproducibly measure the T-cell receptor response to vaccines and then track the persistence and durability of that response over time using just a small blood sample.
And that's important. It's not just the body's initial reaction. It's the body's ability to continue that positive reaction to build the T cells, because the coronavirus will come back or if they fade away. So in those tests with your partners, are you free to share with us, Chad, some of their results? I mean, how has that T cell response been to some of these antibody candidates?
Well, actually, we did announce yesterday on earnings a very favorable comparison in a real-world setting that said the T-cell response had a higher sensitivity rate than an antibody response. And so that's an important new piece of data for sure.
Hey, Chad, just to get into what we've heard from the Russians this morning, I brought this up with Scott Gottlieb, and I'll bring it up with you, too. My concern would be if something gets rushed out there that has not been tested for both safety and efficacy, that it raises all kinds of questions about vaccines in general, and that could be harmful to the broader push to try and get this under control. Do you have any thoughts on that?
First of all, hi, Becky. Well, I do have some thoughts on that. In the United States, we have a very structured process to be able to evaluate safety and efficacy. and we're following that process. So the caution that I would have is that we really stick to our guns and make sure that we have a safe and effective vaccine before launching it out to market, because it's incredibly important that we really stick to our protocols and process.